Thank you very much. It's been about 24 years. I've been making games, and there are some games that are different from what you're familiar with. These are not RPGs, and my motivation was to create a game that incorporates synesthesia. So you have your various senses, and I wanted to create a game where you could feel multiple senses in a complex manner. And recently, I've been involved in producing music and video, providing live performances. And as Mr. Nanjo said, I also teach at the Keio University from 2 years ago. I've been teaching at the Keio University Graduate School of Media Design. So I'd like to show you what I've been doing for the first 10 minutes, and then I'd like to talk about the city. Well, city is not something that is familiar, that I'm familiar with. I've never tackled that directly, but I'd like to tell you what I think about it, and like to apply what I've accumulated in the context of city. So I'd like to spend 10-15 minutes for that. So this is 2001 game, Res. It's a shooting game. So the effects become sort of music, making you feel good. So about 13 years ago, I created this game. So you just play randomly, but the sound effects automatically is turned into music. We call it quantization. So random bits lined up, and then it's replayed. So that's a program we wrote, and that turns into a positive tune. And so there's this chemistry that make you feel better. So there's also vibrations. So if you're good at the game, you get the music that is more pleasant. And as you play, it becomes unclear whether you're playing a game or you're creating music. So that's one thing that we did. So this was sort of a sequel at the TEDx Tokyo in 2011 when I gave a presentation. I did a live performance. So no longer do you use a controller. Like a conductor, you play a game. So there is this camera sensor called Kinect from Microsoft, and more than 10 million units have sold worldwide. Maybe not so common in Japan, but in the Western markets, European American markets, it's sold quite well. It's not a controller, it actually has a camera. So you're standing in front of that camera, and you move your hand, and the Kinect will sense real time where your hand is. I'm not wearing anything, and so you just move your hand, wave your hand. Well, now what you're doing here is that you are purifying the world, which has been infected with a virus. So that's the game that I created. And there is sound effects and visual effects accompanying that, and that is replayed as sort of a musical melody. And so, as you saw with Res, the more you play, the more you can enjoy being a conductor, and the more pleasant sounding music comes out of the game as you play along.
Okay, thank you.
And this sold fairly well. Res didn't sell so well, but it won many awards. And at the Culture Media Awards by the Agency of Culture, won an award and received an art award for the first time as a game. And so it was a starting point for me. But the Child of Eden, 800,000 copies sold overseas. So the number of people who have experienced this kind of game is quite large. And so as a media, I think it's a powerful base. Now, this is not a game project, what I will show you next. But in 2007, 7 years ago, I guess, there was the Live Earth. So Al Gore, the former Vice President of the United States, well, he called on 100 artists to join him to combat climate change. And on July 7th, on the 7 continents, the 100 artists will do a performance in a relay during that one day. So it was a global event, very large event. And at the opening of the Tokyo event, well, there's a Genki Rockets, which is a musical unit that I sponsor. So and we were asked to do a live performance. So I'm a musical artist as well. So I try to combine music and visuals. So that's the unit that I have. And there's a girl singer, but actually she's not a real person. In 2019, at the International Space Station, she was born. So she's the first human being born outside of the Earth. So there's sort of a 300-page novel, which is the base, and I haven't published it yet, but I wrote about 60 songs based on that novel, and we perform as artists. That is the Genki Rockets. So based on Mr. Al Gore's philosophy, as Mr. Inoko showed you some holograms, we had this at the Makuhari Messe, a very large exhibition hall. On that stage, we had the screen, large screen, and we had this special German coated film, and we did a performance. So please watch.
The earth looks really beautiful
これ
from
彼
here.
女が
So she is talking to the audience from the future. That's the setting here.
The rain
ちなみに
falls
彼
on
女
Now, she hasn't actually visited Earth yet.
I've never experienced the smell of the sea breeze. But you can't find no borders, no countries, no day and night, no up and down, no rain, and no breeze. You are always surrounded by the breeze. The breeze I see from here, spinning around the earth. The breeze has no border. I always dream of the breeze.
So それで最
So after she performed, we called Mr. Al Gore to appear. So it seems that the hundreds of millions of people were watching, and Mr. Al Gore sent out a message through a hologram.
What an amazing world we live in. I love it that I can stand here on this stage in Tokyo and speak to you in holographic form. It is astounding that in just these recent few decades, we have seen the invention of technologies that enable us to connect and instantly communicate.
まあこの
So at this time, Mr. Al Gore was actually in New York. 1 week before the Live Earth, I went to New York to shoot a video of Mr. Al Gore, and on that day, he actually was participating from New York. What I wanted to do, I think Mr. Inoko would do this sometime in the future. We wanted to do a real time, at 4K or HD. At that time it was HD. So we wanted to do a high resolution holographic image of him talking to the audience. And he says, isn't that right, Madonna? And then you can have a hologram of Madonna in London, or Bono of U2 to also appear. So to have that kind of a real-time holographic interaction on the stage, that's something that we wanted to do, but it was too early in terms of technological maturation. But there's always technological innovation. So I think that is going to become possible in the future. And I don't have time, but I have most experience in designing interactive things. I think I have a lot of experience there, so including games. What kind of interactive things have we been making? That's what I give a lot of thought to, because you have to understand why you make those things, or else you won't be able to move forward. Well, in music, you play and you have a session, and people raise their hand, and there's this groove, and people feel good, and we want to analyze why people feel that kind of pleasure, or else we won't be able to design the next thing. So that's the harsh environment that we work in, and we have learned many things And in the past 2 years, I stopped creating and I focused on teaching at university and spending time thinking. And that's what I would like to share with you. So this is what we have been designing all along. That is, desire and instincts, some innate, some acquired. You have a lot of desires and instincts based on experience, and that becomes motivation for your actions. I think that you can understand from your experience. So that is what we focus on. And what is our world made of? So this is like a Zen question. But my answer to this is as follows. This is what I realized recently. It is that, there are things you can see, there are things you can't. We create various things, and behind them, there is always the wants and intentions. There are positive and negative wants. Some people, we have all kinds of wants. We want to be alone, but we want to be with people. So that sometimes they're contradictory, but we have those various wants, and we live with them. So I think you can say that our world is made of things that human wants have externalized, like that's externalized human wants. So this building has been designed for someone. Automobiles, roads, they have been thought of and designed for someone. And it's same for tangible and intangible things. And of course, we exclude complete nature, the pure nature. Whenever there's human intervention, we can say that it's externalized human wants. And so they say that we are externalizing human wants. And it is wants that we are externalizing. So let's make something that we can see far away. No, that's not the reason why we make a telescope, because we want to see, or we want to fly, that we make airplanes. And as soon as people fly, there are new wants. So the next want is you want to carry a lot of people and you want to build an airline, or you want to bomb your enemy. So I think that's another want. So it expands, and then a chemistry or chemical reaction is born. So I think that there are three desires. So a desire for yourself, or you desire for someone else, or for some other party. So it could be for a company or for your country, that kind of a group. And then there are the others. It could be for the environment, or for some people, their God, their creator. So people have wants to realize something for yourself or for someone else. So you're always living, trying to materialize that kind of a wants. And various scholars have studied wants, and Steve Rees has categorized these wants into 16, and in English, here they are. And in the past 2 or 3 years, I've held workshops to visualize wants. So I came up with this method, and we did this 40 times. And every time, 30, 40 people participate. And you see the post-its on the wall. More than 2,000 wants or desires are visualized. And when you see that, you can see what kind of wants people have, or what kind of categories of desires people have. That becomes clear in a day or two. And then based on that, how can you design creative things is what we work on in these workshops. So if you repeat this process, you can start to see various things. You start to learn various things. And so wants can be factorized into hidden wants. Say you have a want that you want a car. If you ask why you want a car, it's typical that there are so many sub-wants or hidden wants that comprise that want. So I won't go into the detail. because of time. Here, this is Maslow's pyramid. So at the top is acceptance. Well, the red is food, water, safety. And then there is income. The green part is the acceptance or self-esteem. So people want to be accepted. And then above that, there is self-actualization and creativity. So I think there is a border between needs and wants at around this level. So, and before and after internet, I think our desires and wants have grown. So we wanted acceptance always, but that was within family or in the company or in your group. But now with Facebook, you want people to acknowledge you. And so we've opened the door of our desires. We want people to like us on the Facebook. And a blue part is self-realization and creativity. And, well, crowdfunding and 3D printers and Hatsune Miku. So there's a lot of creative movement that's become a major trend, so which is part of that blue tip of the pyramid. So design shows how, or design is about designing how to realize the wants. And I think that circulations and chemical reactions are quite important in designing interactivity. And from here, I should end in 3 minutes, so I will summarize in 3 minutes. From here, I talk about urban design. So when you apply this idea on urban design, what do you get? So urban design is engineering a path based on how to actualize people's wants. And you need to generate the circulations of energy and support chemical reactions. So what kind of futures, what kind of cities can we envision? Well, when you think about that, you go to the fundamental question, what is a city? When you think about wants, whose wants is to circulate? What are its attributes? That's what you have to think about. Now, when we think about cities, we think about buildings, the hardware, and things, tangible things, material things in English perhaps. Is that what makes up a city, or is it the situations? So I wrote situations in English, koto in Japanese. Or is it people? It's probably all of the above. And how can we engender engagement? That, I think, is the basis from which you need to do urban design going forward. Now, engagement is sort of like a connection. And I think this is a very important keyword going forward. So if you're connected to someone, then it's about yourself. If you're a part of something, then it's no longer something that you're disinterested in. And there are wants of residents, visitors and tourists, wants of governments. When you think about all these wants, when you, well, whose city is it? Well, it's owned by these various actors, and how can you design the circulation and the chemical reaction amongst all these parties, I think is the important thing. And some things you don't really think about in your daily lives. What is culture is something that I gave some thought to. So I think culture is all about accumulation of time. So when you go to Kyoto, you really enjoy it because there is that time or history that is accumulated there. And it's a memory of experience is also part of that time by individuals and by groups. And Tokyo has been destroyed by the earthquake and by air raids, and there have been resets. Now, when we think about our image 50 or 100 years from now, we should have an image, and whether you have a smartphone or glass, doesn't matter what device you use. culture is something that is not swayed by device trends. We need to create a culture that accumulates over 50, 100 years. Can we do that with digital technology? When you think about that, you can see that the 2020 is only a passing point for Tokyo. So this is the final summary. I talk about Tokyo digital architecture. So digital realm should be part of the urban architecture. I think that we should share that idea. So amongst residents, visitors, why don't we all work together to build a city, to accumulate the experience, and to create Tokyo together? And that, I think, is probably going to be the architecture that does not decay, that transcends time. So what is that non-decaying, time-transcending architecture? So we have human wants to leave something behind for eternity. And I think a city is creative and it's organic. So I think what may be needed is a redefinition of the city. So I want to show you this graphic here. It's an experiment by University of Washington. It's called Building Rome in a Day. You usually say that you can't build a Rome in a day, but that's what they're doing here. So this is a YouTube video. You see the black dots. So these are tourists who visited Dubrovnik, a tourist city in Croatia. So they take photos, and the orientation of the camera, position of the camera is calibrated. So that calibration data and 2D image is collected. And then, like we saw with the Kinect, you can automatically create 3D images. So that's the gist of this experiment. There is no creator with an intention, but if many people come to Tokyo, they take photos, then in real time, you can record Tokyo in 3D. And then you can watch this over time, over the course of time. Then you can have endless, limitless, always accumulating city, like a digital Gaudi. So that in the behind the scenes of the real architectural city. And so on YouTube I found this. It's a very old video, Tokyo 80 years ago. So that's the 10th year of Showa. And so that's 10 years before it was bombed in the war. And you can see this, that Tokyo was an astonishing city. And later you'll see Marunouchi district. Not so different in terms of the ambience from what we know today. So this is 8 years ago. But when you think about 8 years from now in the future, we're inputting various things and we're accumulating, and that is going to benefit the future generations. So I think that we need to start working. And so if you go to that space and you use a smartphone, and if you can, well, it will probably be realized that you'll be able to see old image with the current image in your smartphone. So this is Marunouchi. So I'm running out of time, so I need to close. But one last photo. My friend uploaded this on Facebook. His father, when he visited Italy, took this photo, and so he took the photo at the same exact location, and he uploaded that photo. And I was quite moved. So as a want, well, in the 20th century, we have overcome space and transcended space. But now there's going to be a want to try to transcend time. You want to connect over time, or you want to talk or have dialogue over time. Perhaps your great-grandfather 50 years ago, when he was your age, you want to hear his message. I think that kind of thing will become reality in the future. So today's topic is media art goes public. I believe that media art engages people across time and space dimensions. I think there are a lot of possibilities in that regard. Thank you. And sorry for going over time. Thank you.